If everyone is ready, we're going on an amazing journey. A close-up look at the intriguing life of the Jewish people. Let's explore the fascinating lives of the Jewish community known for their deep faith. To give you a quick explanation of Judaism, it's the oldest religion with just one God that's still around today. The first book sent to humans was given to the Israelites. Jewish people believe that Judaism is a religion based on an agreement. They believe that God promised them the land that is now called Palestine, their holy land, if they would have faith in him. Jewish people believe they come from one of the 12 sons of Jacob, and according to their holy book, the Torah, Jacob's name was changed to Israel, which means he who wrestles with God. That's why they call themselves Israelites. Jewish lineage is passed down through the mother. That's why a Jewish man is forbidden from marrying a non-Jewish woman. Even though some people convert to Judaism later in life, some extreme right-wing Jews believe that a person can only be a true Jew by birth. You could say that Judaism is a religion partially closed to the outside world. For example, while most religions focus on spreading their beliefs and inviting others to join, Judaism does not embrace the concept of missionary work. Many Jewish people believe that Judaism should remain exclusive to Jewish people. According to their beliefs, God has given them a special soul that enables them to learn and follow the Torah. This soul, called neshama, resides within Jewish people, and they all share the same type of soul. Jewish people consider themselves a chosen people because they believe that God made a covenant exclusively with them. There's even a segment within Judaism that believes only those who are Jewish have the right to live. Some even believe that all possessions in the world rightfully belong to Jewish people, and that anything in someone else's possession is considered stolen. According to one Jewish belief, there are two types of beings on earth, humans and animals. Jewish people are the humans. This means everyone who is not Jewish falls into the category of animals. They believe that God created Jewish people first, and then created humans disguised as animals to serve them. They refer to a non-Jewish individual as a sheep, and a non-Jewish community as a flock. In Hebrew, the word for sheep also means secret. In fact, the former chief rabbi of Israel, Ovadia Yosef, openly expressed these views. However, another Jewish belief states that being Jewish is not a requirement for spiritual salvation. What matters is believing in God's existence and adhering to the Noahide laws, which are moral guidelines applicable to all of humanity. They believe that anyone who follows these laws, regardless of their religion, will go to heaven. Since Judaism is the unique ethnic religion of the Jewish people, the concepts of religion and nationality are intertwined. Therefore, daily life is shaped accordingly. Even many non-religious Jewish people have incorporated some religious rules into their lifestyle. There are some similarities between Judaism and Islam. For instance, Jewish people greet each other with Shalom Aleichem, which means peace be upon you. It's similar to Assalamu Alaikum. Some Jewish people pray with movements that resemble Muslim prayer. Some even perform ablution, similar to Muslims. They have a ritual of washing their hands and reciting a prayer upon waking up or before eating. For Jewish people, worship generally revolves around prayer. They pray 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening. There are calls to prayer called Barehu, similar to the Islamic call to prayer, the Adhan. When entering synagogues, it is mandatory for both men and women, regardless of their religion, to cover their knees, elbows, collarbones, and heads. It is considered inappropriate to pray with one's head uncovered. Men cover their heads with a large white cloth called a talit while praying. The reason why Jewish people sway during prayer is generally to enhance their focus. In Judaism, just like in Islam, there's a concept of halal and haram, allowed and forbidden foods. The allowed foods are called kosher. For example, pork is strictly forbidden. Only animals that have cloven hooves and chew their cud are allowed, but rabbit and camel meat are not allowed. When it comes to seafood, they can only eat creatures that have scales and fins. By the way, for meat to be completely kosher, the animal needs to be slaughtered using a special technique called shechita by a trained person called a shoche. Restaurants and butchers can only get a kosher certificate, similar to a halal certificate, if they follow this process. Another thing that's forbidden in their belief system is consuming meat and dairy products together. For example, if you're having cheese for breakfast, you can't have salami or sausage. There has to be at least a 6-hour waiting period between consuming meat and dairy. Some people even have separate shelves in their fridges for meat and dairy products. They use different plates and pots. They even separate their dish sponges. For instance, there are 2 types of McDonald's in the country. One is kosher and the other is regular. They don't sell cheeseburgers in the kosher ones, and products like milkshakes and ice cream are sold in a separate section. By the way, before Jews start eating, they say a short prayer, similar to Muslims saying Bismillah. Wine is only halal if it's produced by a Jewish person. All the envelopes and stamps used in Israel are produced using a kosher adhesive. That's because they don't want any Jewish person to taste something non-kosher when they lick the envelope to seal it. One more thing I should mention about kosher. It's the Passover holiday, the feast of unleavened bread. Whether they are religious or not, 78% of Jews participate in this holiday. During this holiday, which usually lasts 7 to 8 days in April, all leavened foods are forbidden. One day before the holiday, all bread is burned in a ceremony. Special unleavened breads called matzah are consumed. During this time, since some foods are not sold in markets, people who do not fulfill the requirements of the Jewish religion turn the markets into war zones before the holiday begins. The kitchen needs to be made kosher for cooking, meaning it needs to be free of any traces of yeast. These residues are not just crumbs. Everywhere, including the kitchen counter where leavened foods have been in contact before, must be cleaned by being left with boiling water. Because this is very difficult, Jews cover all surfaces in their kitchens, even the insides of cabinets, with aluminum foil, which is heat-resistant during this period. Some Jews even have another kitchen that they only use during Passover. In most homes, there are kitchen utensils that have never come into contact with yeast, used only during this holiday. Jews are divided into different groups with different beliefs and practices. Orthodox Jews are considered more religious than other groups, and ultra-Orthodox Jews are even more religious than them. The most noticeable difference of Orthodox Jews is their clothing. Women have to cover their knees, elbows, and collarbones. They usually wear long skirts. It's considered very inappropriate for them to wear pants. When they get married, they cover their hair with a shawl, scarf, or bandana because it's forbidden for them to show their hair to anyone other than their husbands, including boys who have reached puberty. Some wear wigs, while others shave their heads. They also pay attention to the colors they wear. By the way, especially in ultra-Orthodox communities, it's generally considered immoral for a woman to sing or dance in public. In fact, at weddings, men and women dance in separate areas where they can't see each other. Some Jewish women wear the firmka, which is the Jewish version of the burqa worn by Muslims. Although Jews generally say that this style of clothing has nothing to do with Judaism and is too extreme, minorities belonging to some sects have adopted the firmka. In fact, there are so many things considered extreme in Judaism, one of which came to light in 2013. A Jewish man completely covered himself in a plastic bag while traveling by plane. The reason for this was revealed later. It's forbidden for Kohens, who are descended from the ancient Israelite priests, to enter or be near cemeteries. This man was a Kohen, and the thought of the plane passing over a cemetery led him to come up with this solution. Men cover their heads in some way, sometimes with a kippah, sometimes with a hat, and sometimes with a cloth. They generally wear a white shirt and a long black coat called a rekel. From the age of 5, boys start getting a haircut called peyot, where a lock of hair is left on each side of their heads in the shape of a spiral. By the way, Judaism also has a belief in circumcision for males. Baby boys are circumcised 8 days after birth, and a drop of wine is dropped into their mouths during the ceremony. Speaking of birth, when a Jew receives news of a death, they tear a piece of their clothing at that moment. For a week they don't leave the house, wear jewelry, cut their hair, shave, or wash. It's forbidden to wash any part of the body with hot water, but the face, hands, and feet can be washed with cold water. They light a candle in their homes for their deceased loved one for a year. Orthodox Jews believe in the oral Torah in addition to the written Torah. In other words, the Talmud, which explains the Torah. According to them, the Torah is an impossibly difficult book to understand without the Talmud. In fact, there's a program called Daf Yomi in the country where a page of the Talmud is studied every day, which takes a total of 7.5 years. While men never let go of the Talmud, they don't even look favorably on women reading it. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, some Orthodox Jews tried to modernize by accepting modern technologies. Orthodox Jews who rejected modern technology, in other words, those who were closed to change, began to be called Haredim, or ultra-Orthodox. By the way, Haredim are also divided among themselves. The strictest group is the Hasidim. Today, there are approximately 1.2 million Haredim living in Israel and over 1.8 million worldwide. They make up 12.6% of Israel's population. But their birth rate is so high that it's predicted that they will dominate a much larger portion of the Jewish population in the coming years. In fact, according to research by the Israeli National Economic Council, it's estimated that in 28 years, by 2050, 1 in 3 Israelis will be ultra-Orthodox. Jews are one of the fastest-growing communities. This is because they want to increase their population as soon as possible due to the losses they suffered in the Holocaust. In Israel, there's no such thing as a civil marriage. A marriage is only legal if a rabbi performs the ceremony. Some secular Israelis know that rabbis won't marry them, so they choose to get married in other countries. When they come back home, even though the rabbis don't recognize their marriage, it's still legal in the eyes of the law. Similarly, same-sex couples who marry abroad also have their marriages recognized in Israel. For a whole week before the wedding, couples aren't allowed to see each other, and the day before, they have to fast. Orthodox Jewish men usually get married in their early 20s, while women typically marry between 18 and 20. Haredi women are married by the age of 19 at the latest. For a couple to divorce, the woman must receive a divorce document from her husband, known as a get. In Judaism, except in very specific situations, women aren't given the right to initiate a divorce. Only the woman can file for divorce. To get a divorce, women sometimes have to give up custody of their children or make financial sacrifices. Women who are unable to get a divorce from their husbands are called aguna, meaning chained women. If a woman marries someone else in a legal ceremony outside of Israel without getting permission from her husband, it's considered adultery according to their religion. And any children born from that marriage are considered illegitimate and labeled as mamzer. A mamzer can only marry another mamzer. And it's not just them. Their children and grandchildren also carry the same status forever. This means their family line continues to be considered mamzer. In the past, if a woman's husband died and they didn't have a son to inherit his property, she had to marry her husband's brother. This is called a levirate marriage. Of course, these marriages happened with the brother-in-law's consent, but the woman wasn't asked for her opinion. While not as common today, there are still some Jewish communities that practice this tradition. Marriages between cousins are very common, especially among ultra-Orthodox Jews. They do this to keep their bloodline pure. The most interesting thing is that in Judaism, it's allowed for an uncle to marry his niece. Today, only 16% of Israel's population has arranged marriages, but this number goes up to 80% among Orthodox Jews. Parents work with matchmakers called shadchanim to find the best match for their children. They spend a lot of time researching and considering different options. Usually, 3 or 4 dates are considered enough to decide if they want to spend their lives together. Instead of a double bed, Orthodox Jewish couples have 2 single beds in their bedroom that can be joined together. This is because of a period called niddah, when women have their menstrual cycle and couples sleep separately. During this time, not only are couples forbidden from physical contact, but they're not even allowed to pass things directly to each other, like a glass of water. After niddah ends, there's a waiting period of 7 days called the 7 clean days. The woman then goes to a ritual bath called a mikveh, which is a small pool of water. They believe this cleanses them, and only then is it considered appropriate for the couple to be physically intimate again. One of the things that most affects the daily lives of Jewish people is the Sabbath, their day of rest. The Torah says that God created the universe in 6 days and rested on the 7th. So, Jewish people work for 6 days and rest on the 7th. For them, the first day of the week is Sunday, and the last day is Saturday. Sabbath begins at sunset on Friday and lasts until sunset on Saturday. The Torah clearly states that working is forbidden for Jewish people on this day. There are 39 different tasks that are specifically forbidden, especially those requiring physical effort, such as lighting a fire, cooking, cleaning, and writing. Jewish people do not touch money on Sabbath because their religious leaders, the rabbis, say that money itself is work. It's forbidden to even discuss work, let alone do it. ATMs, shops, and most markets are closed during Sabbath hours. Jewish people who want to make the most of Sabbath see it as an opportunity to read the Torah, go to the synagogue, and connect with God. They try to disconnect from everything and everyone except God and their families. There is no place for distractions on Sabbath. The Sabbath meal eaten on Friday evening has become a tradition for Jewish people who have a family-oriented lifestyle. Whether they are 20 or 50 years old, they come together with their families every week, or at least every other week. As if a guest were coming to their homes, everyone dresses in their best clothes and sets their tables with care. Since washing is one of the 39 forbidden tasks, the dishes are not washed after the meal. They can be left in the dishwasher, or disposable plates and cups are used. Many personal care activities, such as bathing, combing hair, and applying makeup, are also forbidden. Jewish women who do not want to appear without makeup apply long-lasting makeup that lasts until the next day and do not remove it while they sleep. By the way, there is even a rabbi-approved makeup brand in Israel specifically for Jewish women to use. Before I continue explaining how life works on Sabbath, I must emphasize that what I have described and will describe are religious rules that Jewish people follow according to their beliefs. The strictness with which these rules are followed varies among Jewish groups. For example, Reform Jews may drive cars on Sabbath, while Orthodox Jews never drive unless it is a life or death situation. Some Jewish people do not use elevators because pressing a button, even a small one, is considered work. Some do not smoke cigarettes because lighting a fire is one of the forbidden tasks. Some believe that using electricity is also forbidden on this day. They either turn off their lights and light candles, or they turn on the lights in the rooms they will be using before Sabbath begins and do not touch the switches again. Some even have timers installed to turn on the lights in their homes at specific intervals. Actively running electrical appliances such as refrigerators and burglar alarms are not turned off. By the way, at the entrance of Jewish homes, and sometimes even at the entrance of their rooms, there is a small box called a mezuzah attached to the right doorpost. It contains verses from the Torah written on parchment. They touch and kiss this mezuzah with their hands as they enter and leave their homes. They believe that a home with a mezuzah is under God's protection. The holiest day of the year for Jewish people is Yom Kippur, a day of atonement, according to their beliefs. On this day, Jewish people fast and pray for 25 hours, starting at sunset. According to a survey, 60.5% of Jewish people still fast on this day. In Israel, food is only served in hotels, and even that is very limited and consists of cold meals. Yom Kippur is an official holiday in the country. Everything except synagogues is closed for 25 hours. Not just small roads in city centers, but all highways, bridges, intercity roads, even border crossings are closed, except for a few Arab neighborhoods. In addition to public transportation, even Israeli airlines stop flights on that day. During this time, radio and television broadcasts also stop. Driving is considered taboo in the country today, because for Jewish people who do not follow Jewish laws and traditions, Yom Kippur means riding a bicycle. You can find many children and families riding bicycles on the main roads. Before Yom Kippur, there's a ritual called kaparot. A live chicken is swung around someone's head 3 times, and they say prayers, transferring their sins to the chicken. Then, they sacrifice the chicken and give it to the poor. They believe this cleanses them of their sins. However, many chickens don't survive being moved around for this ritual. They end up getting hurt or dying. That's why many people protest against this ritual. They believe it should be done with money instead. Going back to the topic of pork consumption, obviously it is not illegal in Israel. It is just a big social taboo. There is only a law that prohibits the raising and slaughtering of pigs, except in areas where Christians are the majority in the country. There is even a pig farm in the country that has been successfully operating for years. There are pig farms in Jerusalem, even though it is forbidden for a pig's foot to even touch the ground of Jerusalem, because Israelis have found a way around it. The floors of the farms are covered with a wooden platform, so it is designed in a way that the pig's feet do not touch the soil of Israel. Pork products have been sold for years in some restaurants, markets, and butcher shops, using coded language, even if it is not explicitly stated as pork. In dealers, you'll often see other meats labeled instead of pork, and in restaurants it's usually called white meat or white steak. Most Jewish people already know this code, so they understand what it means. Today, the most important place in the world for Jewish people is the Western Wall in Jerusalem. That's because this wall is the last remaining piece of Solomon's temple, the holiest place in Judaism. Today, it's used as an open-air synagogue where men and women pray separately, divided by a partition. Before it was destroyed by the Romans, the temple, also called the Temple Mount, was a sacred place where Jewish men were required to make a pilgrimage 3 times a year. Even though the requirement to make a pilgrimage ended when the temple was destroyed, some Jewish people still come to the Western Wall and pray, imitating the ancient pilgrimage. When Jewish people pray, they wear 2 small boxes called tefillin on their foreheads and on their left arms, near their hearts. Inside these boxes are pieces of parchment with verses from the Torah, handwritten on animal skin. They serve as a reminder that God is in their minds and hearts. One last thing about ultra-Orthodox Jews, also known as Haredi Jews, is that they constantly criticize Israeli politics. The Hasidic Jews, the strictest group within the Haredi community, don't recognize the state of Israel and are against Zionism. They believe that the Messiah needs to arrive before a Jewish state can be established. So until then, creating a Jewish state is forbidden by God. Some believe that Jews should live under the rule of a Palestinian state. This is one of the main reasons why Hasidic Jews prefer to live in America. They explain that their reason for living in Israel is to learn and practice Jewish law. Ever since they were exiled, Jewish people have lived scattered all over the world. That's why today, there are large Jewish populations not just in Israel, but also in the United States, France, Canada, the United Kingdom, Russia, Argentina, Brazil, and even Australia. The total Jewish population in the world is 15.2 million. In Israel, the cities where Haredi Jews predominantly live are Jerusalem and Bnei Brak. In America, neighborhoods like Williamsburg, Borough Park, and Rommel's, particularly in Brooklyn, New York, are entirely Haredi neighborhoods. One last thing I want to mention. Today, the terms Judaism and Jewishness are often confused. Some say Judaism is a religion, and Jewishness is an ethnicity. But since Judaism is an ethnic religion specific to Jewish people, these 2 terms are often used interchangeably. Jewish means from Judah, as in a descendant of Jacob's son Judah, while Mosaic means from Moses. The Holy Book, the Torah, was revealed to Moses. But Jewish people believe in a history that predates Moses. Judaism, which doesn't have an expansionist nature, has remained confined within the Jewish community. This has led to the intertwining of religious and ethnic concepts within Jewishness today. Thousands of years ago, Jewish people chose Judaism, and since then, the terms Judaism and Jewishness have become synonymous. This brings us to the end of our video. I've tried my best to shed light on the intriguing lives of Jewish people. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos where we'll explore other mysteries. And let's meet in the comments section right after. Is there anything else you find mysterious or interesting about Jewish people?